Yes, people, how are you all doing? I hope you're all doing really well. Welcome back to Process, a podcast with myself, Brendan Pearson. So today we are doing yet another solo episode, again focused mainly on the fitness side of things. So if you're not really interested in the fitness side of things, please stay and listen anyway and just hold out for me. So the thing that we're going to talk about today is the one thing that you're doing wrong within your training to stop you from getting the results that you want long term. So this is something that I feel a lot of people do, and I do it myself within my own training. I'm quite bad for it personally, which I know I need to get better at. But it's pretty much being consistent with everything that you do within your training, not just being consistent with your training, your diet, actually getting it done, not just being consistent with that, ticking all the boxes, but looking into your actual training, being consistent with the plan that you have, the exercises, the type of way that you progress, the things that you focus on and what you prioritize. So what your end goal is, being consistent and sticking to the plan. So I always bang on about consistency, how important it is within your life and everything, but it is massively important in terms of your training as well. So first thing that you want to do when it comes to your fitness journey, what you want to achieve, write down what your actual goal is. Like, think about it in terms of the first, well, for 1 month, what's your goal by the end of another month? What's your goal by 6 months? What's the goal by the end of a year? What's your goal in 5 years' time? Is there anything specific that you want to achieve? Now, short-term goals for a lot of people are majority weight loss or fat loss, more importantly, or maybe build some muscle. But you might have your own specific goal in terms of building yourself up for a specific race, like a 10K race or a cycling race, anything like that. So have a little think about what your goal is, write it down, and now you need to get a plan in place that is going to help you focus on that goal. It needs to be specific to that goal. Now I'll touch a little bit on it at the end about focusing on specific areas of your training to get to that goal. But I want you to think about, first of all, do that. If you haven't done that already, you need to do it. I'm big on planning, I'm big on journaling, I'm big on writing stuff down. So make sure you actually can visually see it on pen and paper what your actual goal is. Now, in terms of your plan, you need to pick the plan. Maybe get a really good coach who's really good at fat loss, if that's your specific thing you want to work on, whether it's building muscle, get maybe a bodybuilding coach if it's that kind of route you want to go down, or if it's a triathlete coach for some sort of event like that. Get a coach who's really good at that. They're going to write you a plan, or you're going to purchase a plan off them. Now, the hardest thing, because this is the thing that I do really bad, the hardest thing is to actually stick to that plan and be consistent with it, and not chop and change exercises here and there. Or maybe this day I didn't fancy doing bench press, I was bored of it, so I tried something else, I chucked something else in. Maybe this day I kind of cut the end of the workout off short. Another day the rep ranges I didn't fancy doing them high rep range stuff, so I just stuck to like 10 reps. Stick to the plan, because the plan is there for a purpose. Now, in terms of exercise selection, this is something that I really want to push, especially in terms of strength training, bodybuilding, any sort of thing. If you want to get stronger at something, if you want to improve on something, get better, you need to stick to it, and you need to literally, I like to say, need to marry the exercises. So if you're doing bodybuilding specific training, and there's a lot of good coaches out there who talk about it as well, sticking and being consistent to these exercises. So say, for example, like I just said before, bench press. You need to stick to the flat barbell bench press. You need to stick to that exercise for at least 6 weeks to really, truly actually get used to the movement, and your body will actually get used to and adapt to that movement. When you first switch, so for example, if anybody who's been lifting a while will probably be able to understand this. If you flip from barbell bench press over to dumbbell bench press, it feels a little bit weird. It feels a little bit foreign. Your stability's not quite there. You haven't quite adapted to that exercise. It's foreign to you. Your body's not used to it. You're not going to be able to lift as heavy. You might be able to bench 120 kilograms, but you might struggle with 40 kilogram dumbbells because you haven't built that stability. You haven't built the motor patterns for that exercise yet. Now, you need to stick to it. You need to trust the process, which is, again, is a big thing I'm always big on, is trusting that process. Stick to that exercise and just slowly progress it. Now, stick to it for at least 6, 8, maybe even 12 weeks before you even change it out. And now what I want you to do is literally just aim to progress little by little, session by session, whether that's improving by reps. So say you've got a set rep range, of 6 to 10 reps. You're doing 3 sets, anywhere between 6 and 10 reps on your flat barbell bench press. Week number 1, you might get 60 kilograms for 3 sets of 7, just to keep it simple. The next week, now what I want you to do is just try and get one more rep, even if that one more rep is in one set. That's an improvement. That's what I call a PR. That's a personal record. So you've progressed from one week to another, or from a session to session. Now, earlier on in your training plan, you're probably going to find that you're going to progress a lot quicker than you will later down the line. The reason is, obviously, you're adapting quicker. It's the same in terms of anything to do with fat loss. The early stages of a fat loss diet, you're probably going to lose a lot of weight because there's a lot of different variables that come into play, the reasons behind it. But in terms of training, the first few weeks, you might go from 3 sets of 7 on your bench press. The next week, you might be able to jump to 3 sets of 8 straight away. Every single set of it is progressed by 1 rep. Great, you're 3 reps up in total in that. And then what I want you to keep on doing is keep on trying to progress in that set rep range. Say your coach has set you 3 sets of 6 to 10. Once you get to the point when you can do 3 sets of 10 at that set weight, that's when I want you to increase the load. I don't want you to keep on trying to increase the load when you're still at 3 sets of 7, even though it's in the 3 sets of 6 to 10 rep range. I don't want you to try and do that, because you'll probably find that you struggle to, maybe you don't even get into that 6 to 10 rep range. So keep on progressing until you hit that 3 sets of 10. Then you might put 2.5 kilograms either side, so it becomes 65 kilograms. Then you might have to start at 3 sets of 6 and work your way back up. Now, there's loads of different ways that you can periodize your training. There's linear periodization, which is kind of similar to what I was just talking about. It's just progressively increasing the intensity. Some people do it by changing rep ranges each week. For example, to go 3 sets of 10 the first week, 4 sets of 8 the next week, 5 sets of 6 the next week. So the volume and the intensity is increasing as we go up. We adapt to it, and then we almost deload, back off, and then go again. There's also ways like non-linear periodization. Again, I'm getting into the really nitty-gritty. I don't want to go too deep into it, but non-linear, one day you might do a heavy session. For example, for like your lower body training, you might do a heavy back squat, a heavy Romanian deadlift, within like the 5 to 6, 7 rep range. And then another day, a few days later, you might do a lighter day, a more hypertrophy day. If your goals maybe strength and athletic performance, or even powerlifting, you might also throw in a power day where you're dropping the weight a little bit, keeping the reps low, but working really explosively. So there's loads of different ways of progressing your lifts, which I might touch on in a different podcast or a YouTube video or something like that, talk about progressing. But yeah, the main thing that I want to say is stick to your exercises, whatever they are. Stick to them for a good period of time. If you want to get good at something, be consistent with it and don't chop and change. I'm bad for it personally. Like I said, you get bored of exercises after 4 weeks. It might seem like you're doing the same thing over and over again, but trust me, practice makes perfect, and you're going to get good at something. I'm all for obviously changing different things, like for example, isolation movements. There's no harm in changing a dumbbell lateral raise, I should say, and then go into a cable lateral raise. Lateral raise. There probably isn't going to be too much difference in terms of doing that. Obviously, ideally, you want to stick to stuff, but things like that, not a problem. Big compound lifts where there's a lot more technicality, there's a lot more muscles involved, a lot more stabilization. Your body does need time to adjust to it. So, end of the story, end of this little section of this episode is stick to your exercises and just try and focus on progressing them each week. Whether you're doing a high intensity training method like a bodybuilding style where you do one heavy set of like 6 to 8 reps, go into failure, and then you back off a weight and try and get a set of 10 to 12, or if you're doing more volume based stuff where you're doing 4 or 5 sets or something and trying to work with RPEs, that's rate of perceived exertion. So that just means saving a little bit of intensity, saving a little bit of fatigue for later on in the training weeks. But anyway, again, that's for another podcast. So be consistent with your exercises. The next thing, back to my original point, was what are you focusing on? What is your goal? Is it strength? Do you want to get stronger? Is it building muscle? Is it fat loss? Is it get fitter for a specific sport? Now, if there might be 2 or 3 things. For example, if you're an athlete, footballer as a prime example, you might want to get faster, but you also might want to build some strength in your upper body for a different reason. There's two things that you want to focus on over the course of maybe a 12-month period, so a year period. Now, what you want to do yes, you can still work on both those things, but you want to prioritize one of those two things at a time. Now, this can be done by mesocycle, so literally just smaller training blocks, and planning out, right, for this 3 months, I'm going to focus predominantly on my speed stuff to get faster, throwing some speed drills in, some work in the gym, whatever it is. You're going to keep on touching on the upper body side, just almost maintaining that, because we don't want to regress in that. You can maintain it, just keeping the volume a little bit lower and not focusing on that so much, but we're going to prioritize this sprinting work. Now, you see this with strength athletes focusing on different areas of the training. Again, the kind of, if you look at the triphasic training, with Cal Dietz, looking at his stuff, he talks about it as well. Backing off, focusing on one specific aspect of training, backing off on another thing, and then later on in the training year, we're going to bring a bit more of that other thing in. For example, like I just talked about the upper body side of strength training, flipping that back in, and then we're going to back off on that speed work and focus more on the strength work for the upper body. So it's just chopping and changing, periodizing, and also prioritizing when is the best time to do something. For example, if you're an athlete, football, for example, there might be busy periods of the season where you can't do that. You might have to kind of chop and change. You can maybe afford to do a little bit more upper body strength training when the season's busier, because your legs are going to be knackered, so you don't really want to be doing all the sprint work, the high intensity stuff, the lower body strength stuff, where you're going to have a lot of muscle soreness, which is going to affect your performance. So that's it relating to, obviously, to football. In real life, in terms of, if you want to say you've got a busy, stressful period at work, it's going to be quite hard for you to consistently keep on losing body fat in a really stressful situation, which I think I've talked about in other podcasts and YouTube videos. So if you're in a highly stressed state, your cortisol levels are going to rise. When your cortisol levels are high, it's going to be very hard for you to lose body fat. It might affect your sleep, and if your sleep's not on, which I've talked about in a previous podcast, if your sleep's not on point, that's going to affect your fat loss. So there might be periods where you have to say, like, you know what, at the minute, I'm really busy at work. I've got loads of meetings, loads of presentations, loads of stressful things going on, and then some also things going on at home, which is stressing me out. I might need to back off from my training and maybe just up my calories a little bit, just to alleviate a little bit of stress in terms of my inside, in terms of fat loss, because obviously when you want to lose body fat, your body is also in a stress state. So that's another stressor on top of that. You have to maybe say to yourself, you know what, just for these next few weeks, I'm just going to maybe back off. Instead of training 5 days a week, I'm going to train 3, so my body can be a bit more recovered. I'm going to up my calories, maybe 200 calories, just to give my body a little bit less stress to deal with while I focus on these things. And then when the kind of work's calmed down, stress at home, stress in other parts of life is manageable, then I can really start to focus on my fat loss journey, or whatever journey it is. So again, just chopping and changing, prioritizing different areas throughout the year based upon your goals, and also how life is, how tired are you, how fatigued are you. So you gotta manage yourself. Now, one big thing that I have a passion for, and I love this style of training, is the functional fitness side of training. Pretty much training for everything, being able to lift heavy weights, being able to go for a run, mixing in some bodybuilding stuff with some Olympic lifting, some CrossFit stuff, a lot of conditioning aspects. So doing loads of different types of training. Now, if you look at some of the people who do it at the the highest level, for example, one of the best coaches out there at the minute is Ollie Marchon, by far. Look at his business and everything. They're absolutely smashing it, and they are promoting that be prepared for anything, train everything, be prepared for everything, sort of style of fitness and style of training. Now, looking at Ollie's physique, he looks like an athlete. He is built. He looks like a bodybuilder in a sense. He could probably cut a little bit of body fat. To be fair, he's nearly ready to go on stage now if he kind of went down that route, if he really wanted to. So he's in really good shape now. I think a lot of people look at his training now, which is a lot of conditioning work, a lot of cardiovascular work, thinking, how's he built all that muscle doing this style of training? But what they're not remembering is he's 30 years old, maybe a little bit older now, 30 years old. He's been doing strength training for 15 years, and he's got a background of strength conditioning, rugby at a very high level. He would have bodybuilded, he would have strength trained for a long time to build that physique, to build that foundations. He also might have very good genetics, which we've got to touch on as well. But he's got years and years and years of lifting heavy, focusing on building the muscle, before he's kind of transitioned into this more cardiovascular based endurance things that he's doing in terms of the events. I seen he did 3 marathons in a day with the ski erg, the bike and the run. I think I seen the other day. So obviously even he says on his posts and stuff like that, he's lost a little bit of muscle transitioning over when he's doing them sort of style of training. So he even knows that he's sacrificing a bit of his own muscle to switch over to that. So again, back to my point, when you're looking at people who have these amazing physiques and are doing these things, like Nick Bear, for example, another one, he's transitioned from bodybuilding over to more running based. He's still got an amazing physique, and people who have never looked into his background might be thinking, right, he's training like that and looks like that, maybe that's what I want to do. Now that probably isn't the case. For me, especially if you're an ectomorph or like a skinny, you have a quite a high metabolism, you can get away with having a lot of food and you don't build muscle quite well. If I went and transitioned straight over to a marathon training style of training with a little bit of bodybuilding, I know that I would lose a lot of weight, a lot of muscle. I would lean out quite quickly as well, and I would probably be a good 5 kilograms down easily. Now again, if I went away and done 5 years of solid bodybuilding, strength training, trying to build as much muscle as possible, I've got some great foundations there. And then if I wanted to transition over into a little bit more endurance-based sport, maybe I would maintain a little bit more muscle because I've already got that framework there, and it would take me just a little bit to maintain all the muscle that I've had. Like I said, I would lose a little bit. However, the foundations that I have previously is still going to be there. So I'm still going to have a lot of muscle maintained there. So looking at the functional fitness style of training, yes, it's great. I love it. I'm all for it. Being an all-round athlete, train for everything. You can look good, feel good, and you can still move around and live good, which is a big quote that I like to push. Look good, feel good, live good. So you can do all that. However, it's not optimal for one specific thing. If you want to get strong, doing bench press into a 5K ski, doing some burpees and stuff isn't the optimal way of doing things. The optimal way is obviously purely focusing on the strength stuff, increasing your calories a little bit, maybe accepting you're going to put a little bit of body fat on, not going to look as lean and as athletic all year round, but you're going to get stronger and you're going to get them results a lot quicker. So keep in mind those things when you are looking at what sort of training, style of training, what you want to do, what your goal is. But if you feel good training that way, which is the reason I do it, I feel good. I know that I'm never going to be massive in a sense because I've kind of lost a little bit of passion for the pure bodybuilding style of training, just resting 2 or 3 minutes in between sets, not really getting much of a sweat on, just focusing on lifting weights. I do sometimes get a buzz back for it. However, now I get so much more endorphin release, much more of a buzz from the style of training when I'm pretty much pushing myself to cardiovascular failure, EMOMs, conditioning, AMRAP, all that sort of stuff, but then still mixing it in with bodybuilding movements like your bench press, your single arm rows, lat pull downs, pullovers, bent over rows, all that sort of stuff, mixing it in. So yeah, just to summarize it all, like I was saying, it's not optimal to train that way, but if you enjoy it, do it. Just remember that you're not going to probably achieve that long-term goal if it is to build muscle or perform well for a certain sport. You're not going to achieve it as quickly as if you just purely focused on it. So there's just to summarize and wrap up the podcast. It's just a short and sharp one. Just maybe if you're going for a walk, get your steps in. Little 20-minute podcast to listen to, just to spark something in your mind, maybe make you think about what style of training you're doing. And obviously it does take a lot of patience and I don't know what the other word is, but a lot of patience to purely stick to one style of training, because I'm the same. I like changing my training up every so often, and I always end up getting a buzz for different things, and after 3 or 4 weeks I want to change my plan. But if you do have a long-term goal, just trust the process and trust your coach, whoever your coach is, just trust that what they're doing. Obviously you have to know what they're doing. What they're doing is the right thing for you, and stick to your plan, stick to your exercises. Whatever exercises you want to focus on, especially in a strength training aspect. If you want to get good at something and want to get strong and want to build muscle, stick to exercises for at least, I'll probably say at least 6 weeks at the minimum. And then to be fair, you can stick with exercises for as long as you want. You can be consistent. If you enjoy doing barbell bench press and you want to get strong at that, do it for years and years and years on end and get really good at it. If you want to be a good squatter, do it not every single day, do it consistently every year throughout consistently, and just maybe change the rep ranges up here and there, work different things, periodize your training, sometimes focus on strength stuff, lower rep ranges. Maybe there's a period where you're feeling a little bit more beat up, you might have to drop the weight and go more higher rep ranges, up to 20 rep ranges, even work some power work, some speed work. But yeah, just chop and change your stuff as you need to, but stay consistent with those exercises, and obviously stay consistent with certain rep ranges for certain periods of time. Pick a program, stick to it. I heard Elliot Hulse say that one time. Just honestly, just have a program and stick to it. If it's 5-3-1, if it's daily undulating periodization, if it's conjugate method, whatever it is, just stick to it. And if you are gonna go down the route of trying different styles of training, whether it's the functional fitness side of it, maybe it's doing some swimming, some Olympic lifting and bodybuilding all in one, just remember that you're not going to achieve that long-term goal as quick. However, if you enjoy it, I'm all for it. So we'll wrap this podcast up, short and sharp. I might stick this one on YouTube as well, just because I'm videoing it at the same time. I'm going to try and video more of my podcasts. If there's anything that you want me to talk about, anything you want me to cover, maybe fire a few questions away. If you've got a few in your head, drop me a message on Instagram at Brendan Pearson Fitness. The link for that is in the show notes. If you like these shorter style of podcasts, again, the solo ones are sometimes kind of spring on the moment. Like I've quickly just stuck the camera on and started talking before one of my clients today. So if you like these shorter podcasts, let me know as well. Drop me a message on Instagram. It's the best place to get in touch. My email is also down there, which I do respond to as well. If you want to see more guest episodes, let me know about that as well. If there's any particular guests you want on, if it's people in the fitness industry, business-wise, football-wise, or mental health stories. I'm big on obviously pushing the mental health side, especially men's mental health. I've got a few podcasts I've done recently. One's in the link in my bio for the Sunderland Echo, which I've done, which was very good. One was a few good guys on there as well, telling their story. So that's a link in my bio on my Instagram. But yeah, if you enjoyed the podcast, like I always say, remember to get subscribed. If you're on YouTube, like the video, subscribe on YouTube, and remember to share it with one friend. All you need to do is just copy the link for the podcast, iMessage them, WhatsApp them, send it on Facebook, whatever it is. Just copy the link, share it as much as you can with a friend on your Instagram stories. Tag myself at Brendan Pearson Fitness as well. And yeah, just to spread the word about the podcast. So hopefully this podcast has helped you out a little bit, made you think about a few things, and made you stick to certain things and stop chopping and changing your exercises. Because that old myth about doing two sessions the same in a row, or two different, say you're doing a chest day on a Monday. This is very bodybuilding-y. If you're doing chest day on a Monday and a chest day on a Friday, doing the same session twice in a row is bad. It's not. Just be consistent. Progress your exercises in terms of volume, in terms of intensity, in terms of the weight you're lifting, the reps you're lifting. And yeah, just enjoy training is the main thing. Do whatever you enjoy. So thank you very much for listening. This has been Process.